So for this DIY, you're going to need 3 packs of these metal spinner things. I don't know. I'll get the name of them and put them on the screen for you. So it's kind of like a spool of metal, and I've been seeing these everywhere in Dollar Trees recently in all the stores. So these are usually near the front shelves or somewhere around the checkout lane. When you open it, it's actually kind of fun and pretty. You touch it and it just pops open and mushrooms out. So be ready for that. What I'm looking for here is where it's soldered together. And once I found that spot, I use my pliers and I snip it. And then you'll need to untangle it and straighten it out where it's kind of like a super size slinky. I mean, this thing is like a huge slinky. A lot of things came to mind when, I was looking at this, but these spirals are here to stay. Now, you can straighten it out, and hold it straight, but they'll go back to their original shape. So, to start with, I just cut some of the links off. At this point, I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to fit this into my frame yet or exactly where this was going. So I just started cutting these into half circles until I worked my way all the way to the end and had them all cut. And once I did have a pile of half circle strips of metal, then I was ready to work on straightening them out. To make the ripples or waves in the middle, I used some pliers. Now, everywhere I wanted the wave, I would, bend right there. I would bend it back. Now, you're going to have to use your fingers to set the bend. So I hold the pliers where I want the bend, and then with my fingers, I bend the metal back, and then I bend it up. And I trimmed each one to fit inside my frame. Now, the frames that I'll be using are the long frames from Dollar Tree that holds 3 of the 4x6 pictures. You'll need 2 of these picture frames. And now at this point, I had already spray painted my frames white, which I later painted silver. And I'd already removed the metal tabs from the back and set the glass to the side because I won't be needing any of that. After everything is prepped and ready, then I started gluing all of the metal pieces in the back side of my frame one by one. I touched each tip or each side of the metal with a dab of hot glue, and then I set each strip into place. Now, you'll have to adjust each one for a perfect fit, and you can always add length to each of your strips by straightening them out a bit more and pushing on the joints. Now, don't worry about getting it absolutely perfect because you'll have some play on each side of your picture frame. And don't worry so much about how far in and out the waves are on each side, or how the waves line up next to each other. Some of these, I have 4 waves in them, and some have 3. I have a few that have only 2. So these are not supposed to line up. That's not really the look for this. So I continued to work my way down my frame, which it really didn't take long. And once I had the entire frame filled out, then I decided that the white didn't look so good with all that pretty chrome. So I painted the frame silver. And next I grabbed another frame and 3 of these rectangle mirrors from Dollar Tree. Of course, I removed all the mirrors from the frame and had those ready sitting beside me. And I know that this is going to feel backwards. But be sure to lay your frame back side up and then place your mirrors facing the back. So it's going to be exactly opposite of, what you're used to doing. I don't have a good shot of this because I'm blocking the view as I work on this, but I placed the mirrors inside the frame to make sure they fit, and then I went back and I glued them into place. So start at the top and then glue your next mirror at the bottom, and now glue your third mirror in the very center. They're going to kind of overlap just a little bit, and you want the center one to be the one that overlaps. After the mirrors were glued and secured into place, then I glue the frames together with clear Gorilla Glue and Gorilla Hot Glue. Now, I want to show you guys this, although it didn't work, because some of you are probably going to try this. It's the most logical thing to do for this next step, but like I said, it doesn't work. So I used a 4x6 picture frame. I cut it in half, painted it to match the other frames. I measured and glued it in the center, which it looks so nice. And then I drilled 2 pilot holes through the thickest part of the 4x6 frames. And of course, I added screws in the pilot holes on each end. But then I just pulled with a very little bit of pressure. You know how I always test everything I make. And between the glue and the screws, it did not hold. Now the screws, they fit great, and they fit actually really snug inside of the 4x6 frames. But it was the material that the long frames were made out of that didn't grab. So I turned to my wreath wire from Dollar Tree, and I had a couple of projects that I'd made some wall decor out of wreaths, and I'll link that below if you want to see cutting up the wreath wire, or if you're just interested in it. You will need some side cutter pliers for this. So I cut the second smallest wreath ring and measured it to fit the long frame from side to side. And by the way, you will have little nubs from the wreath where the rings touch each other, which is fine. We'll end up covering that with some bling. But I want to be able to use a real candle and not some sort of plastic and then, a battery operated candle, because this whole thing that we're making is all metal and glass with the exception of the border of the long frame. How this is going to work is these 2 frames are glued together, which makes the overall structure more durable. I'm going to be able to go to the front of the frame and bend the wire on each end, and it's going to kind of sit back in the indentation of the 2 frames where they come together. So I cut 3 wires the same length from this one ring. And then to make that as strong as it could be, I glued all 3 of these together so that they're touching one another. And then I painted all 3 pieces so they'll match, the wall decor. And I redid this part just for the video so I could show you a better angle here. And I take the 3 pieces of wreath wire, I run it behind the front of the frame and in the indentation, like I mentioned a moment ago, and I repeated for the other side, and I just tested it to see, and it was fitting extremely tight and snug. And then I added glue to secure it into place. The green wire in the example video doesn't have any glue on it at all. This is just how well it's held in together in there by placement. So on the silver one that, I did glue into place, this just gives you a better idea of how well it is secured where it's at. And then I grab it and, I can pick this entire unit up as a whole. And this thing has got like 3 mirrors in it, all these metal strips, and you can totally put all the weight on this to pick it up by the wire without any problems at all. So now I need some kind of metal platform for a candle to sit on it. So after looking around my house, I decided to go with this metal lid, and this went to a pickle jar. I cleaned it really good and painted it to match, or I thought I was going to paint it to match, but I just about ran out of paint. Anyway, so now I take this piece I got from a ladle or punch bowl spoon out of the wedding section of Dollar Tree, and I cut the bowl part off and then the straight part of the handle off with a hot knife. And I'll link below some videos that has more details showing this exact step if you need it. I already had this in some of my, leftover stuff. So, just so you know, mine had a flaw in it. I had, used Mod Podge and glitter. So I'm going to cover that later with some 1-inch mirrors. But first, I lined that part with my wire. I lined the part that I just cut with the wire to cover the wire, and I glued that. I glued, the handle to the wire. Now I tilt the frame over so I could add a lot more glue and just like really load it up with glue and get plenty of it down in there so I know it has no chance of going anywhere. Next, I go around the pickle jar with some mosaic mirrors that I'd ordered off of Amazon. And, if you don't have anything like this, you can totally use bling wrap if you'd like. Now I remove one of the metal strips in front of this frame to make room for my lid, and I glue the lid to the mirror, to the metal wreath wire, and to the handle. And then I go ahead and I add the 1-inch mirrors, the craft mirrors, and I added that to the side to where it kind of comes over the handle and the mirror touches both the handle and the frame. So it looks like it all kind of goes together. And just to get this out to you tonight, I'm going to stop right here and take some pictures for you. Now, I may update the thumbnail later with some small mosaic mirrors going around the frame itself so it all matches a lot better. Y'all, this thing is so strong, you wouldn't even believe how much weight it can hold. I can set a tall hurricane glass candle holder on this platform without any problems. I've put mirrors on it and just all kinds of stuff. If you wanted to make your platform a little bit bigger and come out further with your wreath wire, you could really set some nice candle holders on top of this instead of using a small one like I did. And you can totally use real candles with this and enjoy your new wall decor because this project is finished.